Austin Ekeler. He was
Nice.
last year's number 4. He had double-digit points in every single game except for
Hmm.
one, and that's with Melvin Gordon vulturing touchdowns.
Yep.
Take it from somebody who owned Austin Ekeler in some leagues. That was infuriating. But now there is literally no competition for Ekeler, and I think he's a
Yep.
really, really good player. He's an unbelievable pass catcher. He might surpass 100 catches this year. He had 7 games where he had more than 20 points, so he has that potential to be one of those big ceiling guys that you want on your roster. Yeah, people might not draft him in the first round because they're just afraid of drafting Austin Ekeler because he's not like this big name like all these other guys that we're throwing around. But just look at production. I mean, even coming into last year, he was kind of a sleeper, and you saw him go in the mid rounds. But I think everybody knew that there was so much potential for him, especially with Melvin Gordon holding out for the first half of the season. And you saw what Austin Ekeler did with that opportunity. There were
Hmm.
opportunities for defenses to shut him down, and they couldn't do it. So I'm really high on Austin Ekeler this year.
Because we're not going to come back to Ekeler. I do have him on the list, but not until 12. And my concern is a changing quarterback. I know we're not supposed to overthink that with like Christian McCaffrey, for example, but Phillip Rivers to Tyrod is a different animal, I think.
If it was Philip Rivers to Justin Herbert and we knew that, I would be more concerned. But it's Philip Rivers to Tyrod Taylor who understands how to
Hmm.
run an offense, and so I think that's a valid concern. But I think it's mitigated a little bit by the fact that you're bringing in another veteran who knows how to run an offense.
Yeah, I think Tyrod Taylor is definitely gonna help that offense. You're gonna see more of a game manager type style out of Tyrod this year, so you could see a lot of carries out of Austin Ekeler, and that was the one thing that kind of I actually don't have him in my top 12 just because of the carries. He only carried the ball 132 times, under 600 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns, but his value, he was 7 yards away from 1,000 yards and 92 receptions. Like, that is a awesome wide receiver stat line. Like, that's borderline wide receiver 2 numbers. So I definitely see the push. I just personally, when I was making this list, actually probably an oversight after hearing your points, Matt.
And he did it on a team that had a clear number 1 in Melvin Gordon. And
Yeah.
even when Gordon came back, he still produced, still had double-digit games all the time.
Yeah. He's very good in the screen game. Like, I remember at least maybe 2 or 3 touchdowns. I saw him break off for like 70 plus yards on a screen, which is great because he's so small that those defensive linemen and linebackers, they lose him when those guards and centers are pulling out, on the screen pass.
It's
So
like Darren
difficult.
Sproles in his prime. It's like, am I really going to draft Darren Sproles? But then you do, and you take him in the 7th or 8th round, or even you pick him up in free agency, and you're starting him every week because he just produces, but he doesn't have like the cachet of Zeke Elliott or Kamara or Saquon Barkley or anything.